In terms of connectivity, we need to increase social capital in communities. Social capital can be defined as the norms and networks that facilitate collective action, focusing on the relationships within and between them. There are three aspects of networks likely to be important in generating social capital: scope, density, and centrality, as well as the location and activation of key nodes. Essentially, social capital is all about increasing the number and type of our relationships. But what builds social capital? Obviously, people need to be engaged, and they need to trust in each other in order to be able to cooperate. And there has to be collective norms and values. There has to be a way to share that knowledge, leading towards shared futures, which all builds social capital. So connectivity is very important on social capital. There are different types of social capital, however. We've called it, we pointy-headed academics refer to it as bonding, bridging, and bonding, and two types of linking ties, bridging and vertical. Bonding refers to relations among family members, close friends, and neighbors in closed networks. It's maybe an example of bonding could be the friendships you form around your kid's soccer team. They tend, therefore, to be highly personal and involve individual self-interest. Linking ties increase access to resources and opportunities that exist in one network to a member of another, and they are both bridging and vertical. Bridging ties are ones that connect networks, and nodes are critical connectors. They are the people that connect one network to another. They are invertebrate communicators. Vertical ties are those that connect a network or networks to resources or decision makers normally outside of the community. We have some evidence in our research on sustainable community development that there is a link between bridging ties and information flows, knowledge, and innovation. So what is needed is a dynamic balance between bonding and bridging social capital that builds resilience, both personal and community, that makes the difference between getting by or getting ahead. As I mentioned before, nodes are those people that connect. They are critical places of intersection between networks, and they are usually based on trust and leadership. Essentially, what we're talking about is how to connect the dots, how to increase the density of networks in any one community. Communication. Connect the dots through online connectivity and local art and festivals. Build a web presence that attracts diverse audience. And build a web presence that connects eco-marketing and ecological integrity. In other words, what you're trying to do is connect the dots between ecotourism, your role as environmental educators, and the arts community to create a more dynamic, vibrant interaction along the corridor. Build in a dynamic capacity that is tied to this unique place, the sea to sky corridor, through your communications activities. And all of the above will lead to greater layers of greater density in social networks of support for the corridor. And I would strongly advise you to pick one theme each year and do it well along the corridor, perhaps diversity. But why is network formation so important? In ecological systems, in terms of networks, the success of the whole community depends upon the success of its individual members, while the success of each member depends on the success of the community as a whole. And as we know, networks increase social capital. There's a consensus growing in the literature that social capital increases the ability of civil society actors to secure benefits by virtue of membership in social networks or other social structures. In other words, it increases your access to other resources and capitals not normally in the community. As I mentioned before, there are two factors critical to social capital: trust and networks. We grow through networks. We have grown in nature. Nature is a master networker. Think of the spider web, how beautiful and strong it is at the same time, and what it looks like when the sun shines through the design of the web. That's essentially what a network structure is. Networks have the ability to be scale-free, and this is very important in particular for smaller communities, in addition to their ability to connect, for they shorten the distance for communication flows based on trust and peer group connectivity so that they can spread information and, more importantly, ideas and concepts very quickly, and can incubate an idea or an innovation even if the rate of penetration or that idea is very slow within the community. Why should we fund network formation? In addition to its increasing access to resources, they create critical mass and a cohesive constituency for desired changes, so we don't have those sort of confusing things where divorce is good for the GDP. We've got to change the indicators of what we're measuring. Through networks, we have increased intellectual and social capital that increases social cohesion, leading to building critical mass again for meaningful social change. Social capital is obviously important for overcoming collective action problems and reducing the costs of social transaction. It builds far greater capacity. Networks are also a powerful means of distributing knowledge and can lead to the reconciliation of previously competing information, interests, and agendas, again increasing cohesion. Local groups can enjoy a distinct advantage that they have a diverse membership with diverse capitals, able to address a variety of social and environmental issues without needing to continually form groups in response to perceived crisis. We're just not going to solve these solutions if all we do is respond to crises. We've got to be far more proactive and intelligent than that. Networks can also build more diverse social capital, and I think in particular we've got just some emerging research happening, the important and critical concept of agency. Funders can play a leadership role by simply helping to connect the dots. Through their funding, they can foster strategic partnerships from competing proposals, actively funding network formation and knowledge collaborators. And for example, the work that Nola Kate Seymour, who's head of the International Center for Sustainable Cities, is trying to build now in Vancouver. But what makes for a successful network? The structure of a network is critically important to its success and long-term viability. Obviously, a more diverse group has access to more diverse resources. One of the most important may be human capital. How open or closed how open or closed a group is to new members or new ideas, as I mentioned earlier, is going to affect its ability to innovate, but we also think now its ability for communities to be able to adapt. The concept of homophily. We're very good at homophily and less good at diversity. Homophily is simply the tendency of us to group with similar people, but it limits our worlds in a way that has powerful implications for the information we receive and accept as legitimate, the attitudes we form, and the interactions we experience. So I would argue that a successful network is a diverse network that is open to new ideas and new people. How dense the networks are, how connected the different networks are in a community and able to mobilize for social change and perhaps increase critical mass for access to a larger scale of resources is very important. And we need a dynamic mix, as mentioned before, of especially bonding, bridging, and ideally vertical ties that will create a resilient blend of local support and with dedication and links to external resources. Nodal leadership is very important. Those are the people that connect networks to one another and how they communicate. It's very interesting in our research in certain environmental campaigns that the people we're identifying as nodes have very interesting personality characteristics. They often don't define themselves as leaders, but define themselves as communicators. They actually are leading, but it's a more lateral form of leadership rather than a leadership from the top down. They also tend to be extraordinarily adept communicators. And as well, more interestingly, they don't see an enemy anywhere. They see the enemy as within, and they're constantly brokering strategic alliances and strategic partnerships in order to be able to be successful in whatever endeavor they're undertaking. We have to encourage self-organizing properties wherever possible, because if people don't see themselves capable of realizing their vision or some of their dreams in whatever volunteer activities they're undertaking, they'll drop out. Self-organizing properties will emerge with more lateral decision-making processes, and as I mentioned earlier with nodes, how the leadership is exercised.